Hello, this is Cameron Snow with Danomics.com. In this video, I'm going to be covering how to use cross-sections within Danomics. So there are really two types of cross-sections within Danomics. There are automatically generated cross-sections and user-generated cross-sections. We're going to cover both of those. We're also going to cover some of the basic controls, how to zoom in, zoom out, how to flatten your cross-section, how to make a structural cross-section, how to update the user-generated cross-sections via drag and drop and by right-clicking on the map to add new wells. And we're also going to cover how to update the display. So the easiest cross-section to make in Danomics is an automatically generated cross-section. So what you'll do is you will find your cross-section tab. If you don't have a cross-section tab, you can right-click on this hamburger menu, say Add Tab, and then select Cross-Section, and you can really do that in any of these windows. I already have a cross-section tab, so I'm just going to click on that. And you'll notice when I click on this, it starts drawing our cross-section here. So I'm just going to zoom in down here to our area of interest, and we can scroll along. We'll see these wells. The cross-section will essentially draw on demand. And if we want to see this cross-section in the map, we need to come to our Map tab. We need to expand our settings icon, and then we need to expand the cross-sections options here, and we can say, for example, let's view our active cross-section. And what we'll see is this is that automatically drawn cross-section. This essentially draws the cross-section for every well that is present on the map. And it draws it either using the serpentine method, which basically just goes left to right, left to right, left to right along a certain orientation. It can be done using this greedy ordering method or the Christofides ordering method. Now, when you do this, obviously, you don't have a lot of control. You can't move wells around. You can't add wells or remove wells. So not a lot of options here. So probably what is more relevant to you would be user-defined cross-sections. So the way we do that in Danomics is you come over here to your map, and once again, this is in the map settings under cross-sections. You can either choose some previously defined cross-sections if you have those. So for example, here I've previously done some cross-section work, so I could select my cross-sections. And when I do this, it brings up a list of the cross-sections that are available. Note there's only one cross-section in this points data set. And this cross-section has a handful of wells, and it's now displayed on the map. That's one way to do it. If you haven't worked with any cross-sections yet and you want to do that, what you do is you just say create new here in this drop-down menu, and I can give this a name, and I want this to be a name that makes sense for my project. So this is an Austin Chalk project, so I'm going to name it Austin Chalk cross-sections, and I'm going to say OK. And so we can now see that's here, and it now says new. And if you're wondering where that's stored, it's stored here in our project tree underneath the project folder that I'm in, which is my Austin Chalk cross-section points. So that's what I've just created. So I've got that available. So now what I want to say is new. And so I'm going to create a new cross-section, and I'm going to call this East-West cross-section 1. And there are a few different ways I can populate this. So I'm just going to zoom into my map a little bit here so I can so you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. So I could come here and I could right click and I could add this particular well to my cross section. So I do that, and now that well's there. I could do this for multiple wells if I wanted to. Obviously that would be a little cumbersome. I can also right click on the map and I can say capture to east-west cross section 1. And now what I can do is I can just click well to well, and you'll see that as I do this, the cross-section line draws on the map, and all the wells are added to the map as we go along. So we've got our cross-section here, and once again, the red portion of this cross-section shows what is available. So I'm going to slide this over real quick so we're more focused on the cross section. So once again, we have the option to flatten. So I'm going to flatten this on the top of my Austin chalk. That's my interval of interest here. So you can see that it does that essentially instantaneously. There's no need to have the cross section redraw. We also have options to show different templates in here. So right now I'm just showing a simple gamma ray resistivity template. If I want to zoom out or zoom in, I can use the middle mouse button. So that's the scroll wheel on your mouse to zoom in and out. We can also do a zoom via selection. If I click in a depth track, now it zooms to the selection that I just made. And if I want to zoom all the way out, I can double click in the depth track. So now I've got one cross section here. Looking at this cross section, okay, we've got a cross section we want. So let's say I want to add another cross section here. Once again, I can just come here and I can say new. And let's say I'm going to make east-west cross section 2. Okay, so now I've added that, I would like to see where my first cross section is. So instead of active here, I'm going to say all. So that shows me that first cross section line. So now I'm going to make a second cross section that comes through here. So once again, I can right click on the map and I'm going to say capture east-west cross section 2. And I'm just going to start clicking on wells here as I move across my map. And you know, maybe I want to come over here and end it where it intersects my first cross section. Once I'm done drawing, I just right click and I say cancel capture. Okay, so now we've drawn the second cross section. Let's take a look at it. And we see a couple of wells in here actually don't go through our zone of interest. So maybe we'd like to remove those wells. The way we do that is we come over here to our cross section list. We identify those wells, and I'm just going to X that out, and that made one of those disappear. Now I'm going to make this one disappear. Once again, I find that well in the well list, and I eliminate that well. Okay, so that seems pretty simple there. Let's say I wanted to switch back to that first cross section. I can either come here and I can click on it in the map, and now I'm back to my first cross section. Or I can come here to the cross section selection menu and I can select east-west cross section 1. Okay, so let's say that I'm focused on my east-west cross section 2 again, and let's say I wanted to add a few points here. There's a little cluster of wells here, so I'm going to zoom in on those. Okay, so let's say I wanted to add some of these wells to my cross section. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to say add to east-west cross section 2. And now what we'll notice is out on the end of this cross section, we've now drawn this well. Now it's not very useful to have it drawn that far out of order. What do I do if I want to change the order? I can come over here to this well in the well list. I can click on this series of dots here, and I can drag that well up. And so now we've reordered the cross section. And note that that well has now been dropped in its correct place. And let's say I wanted to repeat that operation, just add one more well here. So once again, I'm right click. I'm going to say add to east-west cross section 2. Once again, this well has been put out on the very end of the map. It's appended to the end, so I can just grab that, move that up in my well list, and now I have this that well in the correct order. Okay, so that is how we can add new cross sections to the map. That is how we can add points to the map, and once again, that's how we can remove these. So let's say once again I want to remove this. What do I do? I locate this well here in the well list, and I just click on remove, and our cross section has updated. So there we go. So that covers how we automatically generate cross sections, user generated cross sections, and how we can reorder those cross sections and add and remove wells. The last thing that you're probably wondering how to do is how do I change my display? Maybe you don't like the default colors. Maybe you want to add different curves. We access this the same way we access it in any well log panel. So we come up here to the settings on the top right, and we can click on this, and it brings up our settings for our track editor. So I could come in here and I could, let's say I want to make my gamma ray track a bit wider. I could just make that wider. So now it's a bit wider. I could change, for example, the color of my gamma rays. Let's say I want to make that a bit darker. I can do that. Let's say I want to change the fill color. Maybe I want to make that a little bit lighter. I can do that. And we can see those changes are essentially instant. And then to hide this away, I can either click on these two double arrows in the top right, or I can click on the settings icon again. Okay, there are two other ways that you can access this. You can also hover over the track, and when you do that, it pops up a little settings icon beside the curve. And if I click on that, it takes me directly to the settings for those curves. So let's say I wanted to change the name of that from RT to Res D for some reason. I could do that. Let's say I wanted to change the scale to be 0.1 to 1,000 instead of to 100. I can do that. Let's say I want to change the fill to fill from 10 ohms to my curve, and let's say I want to make that a lighter color. I can do that as well. These changes are essentially all instantaneous, so very quick to update those. And once again, I can hide those settings away just by clicking on this settings icon. All right, I hope that has been useful to you. If you have any questions about how to use cross sections, please let me know. As always, I can be reached at support@danomics.com. Thank you.